The Grand is Calgary's cultural house for multidisciplinary live art. It is a nice space where artists of all work streams can converge to think, dream, and bring many of their ideas to life, which is the very key to driving creativity and oneness with the communities they serve. Alive and vital, the Grand welcomes companies, collectives, and individuals to come together and learn from one another, building shared meaning and culture for our city.
Hi, I am Lanre Ajayi, and I'm reaching you now on channel 173.1 DT on people, places, and events. This is My City Speaks to Me, the Calgary edition. Welcome to the Grand Theatre here at the downtown core of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. A little over 100 years ago, the city of Calgary received its first major cultural gift, the Grand Theatre. Established in 1912, the theatre has been a center for performance of contemporary art from Calgary, Canada, and around the world. Now, this is the oldest theatre in downtown core of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and presents cutting-edge contemporary performing arts from around the world. At the Grand, citizens and visitors of Calgary had an opportunity to come together and experience live performance created in Calgary and touring acts from around the world. The Grand is situated on the land where the Bow River meets Elbow River. The traditional Blackfoot name of this place is Mokinstis, which is also referred to in modern times as the city of Calgary. Like I said earlier, the Grand is Calgary cultural house for multidisciplinary live art. And today I would love to show you around this place for your viewing delight. But to do justice to that, I will need someone who sort of serves as a custodian and holds the scepter in his hands. I will take you behind the scene to explore the beautiful architecture and useful insight to what the Grand has to offer. To help me maneuver this tour and make sure you all get center stage insight to the Grand is no other person than my friend, the CEO of the Grand Theatre, Mr. Tony McGrath. Like we do on this show, don't move a muscle, stretch. Stay with me. This building holds so much historic content that helps to sharpen Calgary's social and political life. The Grand Theatre is housed to the historic Lockheed Block, which was built in 1912 by Sir James Alexander Lockheed. It was designed by L.R. Wardrop when Calgary had a population of only 50,000 people. The Lockheed Block was built as a multi-purpose commercial building, accommodating retail stores, offices, living quarters, and the Grand Theatre located on the ground floor. At the time, both the Liberal and Conservative parties held rallies at the theatre, as did Nellie McClung of the Famous Five, Prime Minister Robert Borden, and Premier William Eberhard. Being the biggest theatre in the Pacific Northwest at the time, the Grand attracted well-known performers such as Sarah Bernhardt, Fred Astaire, Ethel Barrymore, the Marx Brothers, George Burns, Ethel Rubinstein, and Paul Robeson, among others. With the opening of the Southern Jubilee Auditorium in 1957, the Grand Theatre became primarily a movie house, an incarnation that lasted for almost 50 years. In 2005, local theatre company Theatre Junction Society raised $12 million to purchase the Grand, thus saving it from demolition. Theatre Junction transformed the old theatre into the Theatre Junction Grand. In December 2018, the theatre rebranded itself to the Grand. Welcome back. It's still My City Speaks to Me with your host Lanre Ajayi, and we're still exploring the Grand and the legacy that this place holds. This theatre holds so much historical content that we cannot overlook. The original Grand Theatre was fashioned with 1,350 seats, 810 on the main floor and 540 in the upper gallery, and boasted the largest stage in Canada when it first opened. Considered modern for its time, 15 of the dressing rooms below the stage of the Grand Theatre had art and
cold running water, as well as electric lighting. This is still My City Speaks to Me with your host Lanre Ajayi, and I'm still here at the Grand Theatre. This is such an amazing space, and my good friend here, Mr. Tony McGrath, understands this, and I'm looking to ask him some current pertinent questions and to get him share with us some very great insight about this space, the Grand Theatre. Welcome, my friend Tony.
Good to be here, Lanre, and it's always a real pleasure to see you.
Actually, I would love to shake your hands, but because of the challenges of our time, the coronavirus, that is why we have this distance between two of us. I don't think this is not the kind of interview that we're used to.
No, and the Grand has become your home a little bit too.
Yeah.
So many times with so many African influence events that we've had here, so I kind of feel like this is your home base.
This is definitely because there's a lot of historical content that I'm getting at this space, and it's amazing, built in 1912 and is still standing today, and the oldest of such kind.
In Western Canada.
Yeah, that is amazing.
And probably the best of its kind in Canada.
This amazing space, it's so beautiful that when it was constructed, going through the history and information behind, about this space, we have electric sprinkler system, we have cold and hot water running, you have space at the gallery and here, and it's such a beautiful space.
It's remarkable, and we've had some incredible artists through here over the years. And when we were originally built in 1912, we actually had seats for 1,400 people.
Wow.
So we have our own African Canadian racist story and history in here.
Wow.
So we way back in the 20s, we had a gentleman called Charlie Daniels. African Canadian living here in Calgary. I don't think he had citizenship rights at that time. I don't think he was allowed to have them. But he bought a seat in the main part of the theatre for a play called King Lear, which is about a black king.
Wow.
And he was ejected from his seat and told to go sit in the colours only section of the theatre.
Wow.
And this is way before any of our historic racially biased stories from way back in Canada in the 30s. He sued the Grand at that time, which is almost unheard of, that a black man in this country would sue a white establishment way back in the day. And he wanted to see a play about a powerful black king.
Which is very good, a story that is connecting him back to his roots.
Totally. So he won the case.
That is amazing.
We're not sure what he actually was paid. He may have been refunded his ticket, but that is an amazing piece of history. And our connection to the black community in this city goes back that far.
Thank you so much for that amazing story.
Yeah, so we have a long connection. We have a Caribbean Canadian black resident poet in this theatre, Wakefield Brewster. You probably know him. He did an amazing piece just recently called Blackout in the theatre, and he did another amazing piece just last week called Blacklit.
Wow.
And both self-written poems about the Black Lives Matter movement in North America at this moment. So he speaks on behalf of this theatre. I don't speak on behalf of this theatre on those issues. I'm not a black man. I don't know what it is like to be a black man in this city. I was an Irish boy in England, but you can't tell I'm Irish from the outside.
Okay.
So we provide the space for our black community to speak as this theatre. So Wakefield speaks as the Grand, and not the black Grand or the white Grand or the Chinese Grand, but the Grand. So they're both beautiful poems that speak in a completely uncensored way about the issues that our black community and people of colour and our Indigenous brothers and sisters are facing in this city at the moment.
Now, talking about Indigenous brothers and sisters, I learned they have a space here as well.
They do. I met a young, talented, queer Indigenous artist. His name is Justin Manyfingers.
Okay.
I just arrived at this theatre in August 2018.
Okay.
So we shook hands on a deal for an Indigenous theatre company, the Making Treaty 7 Cultural Society, to become resident in this theatre. We didn't know at that stage that had never happened in Canadian history. So no Indigenous theatre company had ever been resident in a major Canadian theatre before that date.
That is
Quite
amazing.
amazing that.
Yeah.
They are our first peoples, yet they weren't the first peoples in our theatre.
Oh, wow.
So they're still resident here. They have about to announce next year's season. They performed a full season here last year. And they're actually housed in here. We work right alongside of them in our offices.
That is amazing.
This is their home. We're on their land. And I could not be happier that they represent the First Nations heritage of this theatre and the land that we're built on.
I mean, you've got a lot of good things going on at this space.
Yeah.
You know, the African, the Caribbeans, the Chinese, the Indians. It's a home for everybody.
Yeah, we've had everything from Italian and Polish to our brothers and sisters from the Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. We've had Filipino events in here. So my vision when I came to the Grand was to develop it as a culture house. And we have a welcome policy here, so we actually don't care where you're from, or what the colour of your skin is, or your religion, or your sexual orientation whatsoever. We don't care about your gender. This is a safe space. The only thing that we don't allow here is any form of hatred or racism or bias. That's it. So we don't have a diversity policy in this theatre. We are diverse.
That is amazing, and that is what makes the community, you know, thriving, excelling in everything it chooses to do, creating a space that lives up to its promises, vision, and mission, and making it, you know, conducive, you know, accessible to every member of the community.
Yeah, my vision is that our community owns it, not me.
Yeah.
This is not my theatre. My job has been to rebuild the brand and make it a safe place.
And you're doing an amazing job.
I hear what you're saying, but I've had an incredible team. So all of my team came from the arts. None of them had ever been in business.
Wow.
So we created a whole new genre of business people here called artpreneurs. So they are a remarkable group of young people, and they've got the entrepreneurial spirit, but a very creative mind. And
That's
an ability
amazing.
to learn very quickly and pivot very quickly. So
That is amazing.
So I don't think this theatre should be anything else but belonging to the people of Calgary. And that encompasses everybody.
Yeah, because it was built for Calgarians, and it should be for the youth and for the good of Calgarians.
Yeah, and we've had political rallies in here during the last provincial election, both on the right and the left. We don't
That is good.
discriminate whatsoever. So really politically, this theatre is Switzerland. So we sit in a very unbiased position. We're very respectful of political and religious views here, I think. And we have really embraced our LBGQT community. We've been closely involved with Pride Calgary. And I think that's something that, an area of our diversity I'd much like to develop in a much more meaningful and close way. Nellie McClung, who was one of the famous 5 women in this country who was striving for women's voting rights. In fact, at that point, I'm not even sure women were considered able to vote.
Yeah.
And were actually considered to be a property.
Property at home.
Yeah, and she had a women's voting rights rally in this theatre. So we've got a long history of diversity and political open doors to allow voices of the people of Calgary
To be heard. That is amazing. Now, in terms of, you're doing an amazing job, you're doing so much work, and then, you know, kudos to you and your team, Artpreneurs. Okay, so what is the plan to reopen? What are your strategies? What are the things you're putting in place to reopen as soon as we're getting rid or flattening the curve of this pandemic?
That's a great question, because there's an awful lot of I don't knows at the moment. but I'm working very closely with the board here to put together a new financial plan with financial support to ensure that this beautiful theatre continues into the future. So we've got a number of projects on the go that's going to ensure that we are sustainable going into the future.
Okay.
We're making some changes in terms of the leadership and the staffing of the theatre that the board are going to be announcing very shortly. We've developed some great relationships in the city for 2020 for us to put on some virtual events with some live elements.
Okay.
Just 2 weeks ago we did the TEDx YYC talks in here. They were filmed directly in our studio upstairs. We're about to announce a fairly significant musical event in here in collaboration with local musicians. In November, I've come to an agreement with the management of Discovery House in Calgary that we're going to hand over the Grand and its facilities for the month of November. That is the month to recognise domestic violence, and it's the month of the child.
Yeah.
And domestic violence rates in this city have gone up over 30% in the last 12 months.
Wow.
So, it's going to be an amazing month full of very creative activity in here. And my hope is it's going to be somewhat controversial. We're not going to hold back in any way about the damage that domestic violence causes in our society. And I think COVID and the lockdown and people being trapped in their homes has accelerated
a lot of that.
Of violence. So that's very important to me. It's an important topic for me. So we're going to work very closely with a group of executives over at Discovery House for the month of November. So that's this year. We're hoping to announce a full season for our resident theatre companies shortly for 2021. We're going to be accelerating our revenue from corporate events and weddings in here. So we're really opening the space up to different revenue sources to make sure we're sustainable. So I'm excited about 2021. I think we're going to continue our role as a culture house, inviting all Calgarians in. So we had the incredible African event in here, Omagishu.
I think it's Uganisha.
Oh, Uganisha.
Uganisha, yeah.
That was an incredible event we've had this year, and we're hoping that they'll come back to us in 2021. So I'm pretty excited about the potential to do that. So I think there's still a lot of details to be worked out around operating protocols and working closely with our incredible union in EATSE. My technical staff are members of that union, and we've worked with that union since 1912.
That is amazing.
So we have a long relationship with them. So we're working on safe operating protocols both for our staff and our guests.
That is amazing.
So that's all kind of developing. I mean, nobody really knows a great deal at the moment.
And it's true because with the challenges we're going through in our community due to the coronavirus pandemic, is really affecting a lot of organizations. But I'm glad that the grant is still standing and it's still moving forward, and you've got an amazing, plans in motion, which I know that Calgarians will love to, be part of what is happening in this space.
Yeah, we've realised we've got to become an awful lot less dependent on public money, because with the provincial government announcements yesterday, that's going to become more scarce. So we've got to really stand on our own 2 feet, and that's very important to me that we do that. So I have a great board, and it's young and fresh, and really looking forward to the future at the moment. So
that is amazing. We're looking forward to a bright future of the Grand. If you've not been to this space, I want to encourage you to come check it out. When this place is fully open, it holds so much historical, content. Looking at the space, the lighting, everything. It's amazing, and to, know that this place was constructed in 1912. Over 100 years ago.
It is quite amazing, and I'd like to say, don't be afraid to ask to perform in here. We don't have any restrictions.
I love that. So don't be afraid to ask to perform at the Grand.
Because there are times when people feel maybe they don't belong in a theatre of this kind of size and status. I don't think that you should be afraid to get in touch with me and ask. You know, we're very open to that, and fear has prevented many artists from around the world who reside in Calgary from actually getting to perform in theatres like this. And we, over the last 2 years, have had many young artists in the city who never ever thought they would grace the stages of a theatre.
So Tony, tell us about this space. Where are we now?
So we're actually in the main theatre here. It's known locally as the Flanagan Theatre.
Flanagan
part
Theatre.
of the Grand.
Okay.
So we seat 420 people in here.
All right.
There is not a bad seat in the house. As you can see, we've got no pillars, no view obstruction. The acoustics in here are quite remarkable. The stage behind you, the basic stage, it has the original theatre walls. So we have dance floors, riser stages, we have full theatre lighting in here. And as you can see up there, that's our control room for sound and light up there. So this is extremely well equipped. It's a theatre that musicians love to play in, dancers love to dance in, and actors love to act in. For our business clients, our seats actually telescope fully back into the walls here. So we have a full banquet and event space in here. We can seat up to about 280 people.
Wow.
So we'll do weddings, memorial events,
Okay.
product launches, town halls. Half of our seats can be pushed out and half back. So we've got a great opportunity to configure whatever you want. And if you're having an event or a wedding here, because it's a theatre, we can create anything we want in this space.
And the headroom is amazing.
It is. The acoustics are remarkable. There's very little echo in here. It's a black box theatre, so when we are fully blacked out, there's no light bleed and no noise bleed out of here. So
Wow.
we have actually 5 entrances into the theatre, so the configuration can be pretty much anything you wish.
That is amazing. Let's go explore more spaces here at the Grand.